we are here in Baden-Baden for another traditional interview with the Swiss Re representatives. We are here together with Mr. Christian KREUTZER, Head Market Underwriting for the CEE markets, and Mr. Ralf MULLER, Head Facultative Property and Casualty, also for the CEE markets. Thank you for welcoming us here at the Swiss Re headquarters here in Baden-Baden. So my first question is related to the Nat Cat events, because 2018 was so far a less costlier year for the reinsurance in terms of Nat Cat losses compared to 2017, which was like a record in the matter. Still, the rates remained quite at a low level compared to the level of the claims. Taking all this into consideration, what do you think are the main challenges for the insurance industry while we are moving to 2019?
Yeah, I guess, when you look at 2017, as you mentioned, this has been a record year in terms of Nat Cat loss activity for the entire industry. And still the impact on reinsurance terms and conditions has been modest. That's clearly what one can conclude. And I think a main reason for it is that the reinsurance business still attracts a considerable amount of capital. And there's still a considerable amount of excess capital allocated to this industry, partly also because other investment forms are, with the current interest levels in the global world, not attractive enough. So that's a given fact, and we can't change that, and 2018 won't change that either, though it's also noticeable that it's not so that nothing happened in 2018, right? We had major typhoon losses in Japan, just to name one aspect, and a few medium-sized events also across Europe. For us as an industry, it simply means that we very carefully need to understand what are the underlying exposures of our books and how to reflect that in adequate terms and conditions. And I think that's the motto for this year's Baden-Baden, right? Last year we spent a lot about impacts of the hurricanes on the total industry and the like. This year it's clearly about what's happening in our clients' books and how can we support as a reinsurer the clients in managing their Nat Cat exposures. So you could say it's probably back to basics. This is clearly what we do this year.
Mr. Müller, do you want to add something?
Yeah, from a facultative perspective, we are quite close to the original markets. And when I look at the CEE as a region, including CIS, the main challenge for us as underwriters is that the underlying exposures on Nat Cat are not reflected in the original rates. And since we also have a lack of big Nat Cat events in CEE, CIS, the competition is even increasing, so the rates are even dropping. However, when I look at other markets where Swiss Re is active on facultative, one of our special solution is offering Nat Cat carve-outs for highly exposed business at reasonable prices. And first of all, I think we need to find ways that the underlying exposure is reflected in the rates, and then we are prepared to offer big capacity. Swiss Re has big capacity available, also on the facultative side, for CEE Nat Cat carve-outs.
What are the main opportunities for the reinsurance industry at the moment?
Talking a bit more specifically on the region I'm responsible for with Central Eastern Europe, I think we have one advantage in comparison to many other regions is we still have underlying growth, right? So there's still insurance penetration is developing, is growing, and growth by definition is an opportunity for reinsurance because it means that clients need to buy more capacity, need to buy more reinsurance protection. Our opportunity in that space is that we have the tools and capabilities not just to manage the risk positions a client has on its balance sheets, but also managing the capital requirements related to those risk positions. And this has been quite a frequent topic in the discussions we had so far here in Baden, and clearly gives us opportunities also where we can differentiate Swiss Re in comparison to competitors with respect to our capabilities in that field.
Yes, the pocket of opportunities are, when I look again at CEE, in particular, the lack of BI cover, business interruption cover in property insurance is still a big opportunity for us, because unlike Western countries, in Central Eastern Europe, business interruption has not become a standard product. When I look at casualty, in particular, I see the challenge that, unfortunately, the clients buy casualty cover on their depending on their budget and not on their demand, actually. And so we see a need to increase the current low limits to higher levels, and there we can offer facultative solutions again.
One of the main opportunities and at the same time a challenge for the reinsurance industry is related to the protection gap. What are the solutions provided by Swiss Re for closing or at least narrowing this protection gap?
I mean, the protection gap is clearly one of the common features of most Central Eastern European markets. I mean, natural perils exposure is there, but it's a matter of fact that still the level of insurance penetration related to those perils is low. And I think the response to that is manifold. You can either look into, do we offer the right products? Quite often the issue in Central Eastern European markets why insurance penetration is not higher is simply related to the cost structure of a classical insurance product. So narrowing down the cover, narrowing down the structure of the product to the actual need of the consumer, having a protection against a major natural catastrophe, and with this lowering then the overall cost of the product is something where we have ideas, where we have probably also solutions. But it's not about us implementing solutions. It's working together with clients to really adopt a specific product or a specific approach to the individual needs of a specific market. And I think that's very much what we aim to do.
Yeah, one just additional comment. Protection gap is not just an issue for emerging markets like CE. Swiss Re has identified protection gaps globally. So even in mature markets like Germany or Austria, we see big protection gaps we want to close.
Which technology seems to have the most potential to transform the industry?
That's the 100 million question, right? I think clearly when you think about distribution as part of the insurance value proposition, I guess aspects where we can transfer the insurance products more into the digital space. Is it online sales? Is it online consultancy to clients? Is a key feature. And admittedly, when you look in most European markets, the portion of online sales on the total sales of insurance products is still on a relatively low level. Which is in a way logical, right? Because an insurance product is not like buying a book or buying some clothes where you can make your choice. The products are relatively complex in the way how they are defined. So I think one aspect is simplifying products also with the help of technology. And I think we will come to that later on. And then at the same point in time also make products easier accessible to consumers. I think there's another aspect which we also need to understand. I mean, the society around us is also evolving. When I was an 18-year-old guy, my greatest wish was to have my own car. Right? And that was the first contact with insurance because I purchased a motor insurance policy for that car. If you ask today people the same age on the streets, they are not necessarily keen on owning a car or having a car. They are looking for possibilities to have access to a car when they need it. And I think that's where the insurance industry, also with technology, needs to find a response for.
Do you consider that the index-based insurance or parametric insurance can be successfully implemented in the CEE regions?
We're working on it. I mean, we are involved in concrete projects on this topic. And we believe this can be a solution to close the protection gap, because with index-based insurance, basically meaning we are no longer providing a traditional indemnity-based concept, but we provide coverage. Once, for example, an earthquake exceeds a certain threshold, there will be an automatic payout. That will reduce the claims handling and the administration costs related to the product, and with this also lower the cost of insurance. And I'm very convinced that this can be a very powerful instrument to bring more risks into insurance in Central Eastern Europe.
Are these products accepted by the regulatory authorities?
It will always require an individual discussion with local regulators. That's key. And we are in such discussions in various areas. And I think the fact that we can transform more risks into insured risks is certainly also a convincing argument to regulators in the region.
And now coming to a more global issue, because these days everybody is discussing about the Brexit. What do you think that are the challenges posed by Brexit for the insurance industry?
I mean, at this point in time, I guess it's primarily the element of uncertainty, which creates a challenge for the insurance industry. I mean, Brexit negotiations are ongoing. We can all read it in the press. Things are moving forward. Sometimes they move back. And that creates uncertainty, right? Will carriers in the UK have the same effectiveness on the reinsurance purchasing of a EU insurance company after Brexit in terms of equivalence principles? So there are a lot of questions, a lot of uncertainties related to it, and I think that's primarily the challenge. What it ultimately going to mean, that probably we all need to wait and see how such a Brexit will then actually look like once it's concluded.
Okay, and now for you, Mr. Müller, I have a question, because we have read about Swiss Re thermal coal policy. What can you tell us about it? What is the background of this thermal coal policy?
Firstly, Swiss Re supports the worldwide reduction of greenhouse gas emissions and contributes so to limit the global warming. Secondly, Swiss Re signed the Paris Pledge for Action and continually reviews the further measures to support the transition for a low carbon economy. And so far, Swiss Re has focused only on the investment side. That means we stopped investing in securities that were linked to thermal coal, right? Now, actually, since July this year, we announced to apply the thermal coal policy also in our underwriting, meaning to give guidance how to reduce the thermal coal exposure in all of our lines of business in insurance and reinsurance. And thermal coal, by the way, is defined as coal that is used for heat and power generation. It should not be mixed up with what we call metallurgical coal, which is used in the steel production.
Okay. What will be the impact on treaty and facultative contracts in the upcoming renewals?
I'm pleased to talk about facultative, which is in my responsibility. As you can imagine, facultative sessions offer the necessary transparency to see the exposure. That's why Swiss Re has decided not to write any new facultative business any longer when the thermal coal exposure of an individual risk exceeds 30% of the overall revenues. It goes without saying that we feel committed for all running business, right? For instance, if we accepted a risk 1st of May and that runs for 12 months, we will stay on board until the natural expiry of the risk. However, we also strictly apply this thermal coal policy for special acceptances on treaties, right? Would you comment on treaties, please?
I will. I mean, the policy from my point of view is relatively clear. We aim to reduce our exposures where we can isolate the exposure. So Ralf and his teams on the facultative side obviously have the advantage. I mean, they cover a specific risk. So with this, they have full transparency in how and to which extent that risk is exposed to coal or thermal energy. On the treaty side, where we cover portfolios, such risks are part of an overarching portfolio. So there, for us currently, it's rather so that we want to find out and discuss with our partners what are the actual exposures there in the reinsurance treaties. And that's not a process which goes from 1 month to the other. That's a process which will probably take a year or two until we're going to see what is the overall accumulation of exposure related to coal and thermal energy in treaty reinsurance, and then have a discussion with our clients how an exit strategy can be applied. And it's fair to say it's not just Swiss Re looking at this topic and meeting the requirements. I think we all have to think about in terms of climate change and the impacts on society. Also, many of our clients have a similar view on that, and therefore it's quite often a common approach how to reduce the exposure over the next coming years.
And since we are in Baden-Baden, can you sum up in a few words how was these days for you from the Swiss Re point of view?
I mean, for me, on the treaty side, as I said before, I would describe this year's Baden very much back to basics. We talk business, we talk actual business, we talk about the exposures and the risks in the portfolios of our clients, and we try to develop together with them solutions how to protect their balance sheets on those exposures. So it's a quite technical Baden. You really talk about individual aspects of the portfolio. And we look at client relationships overall. It's important to see, I mean, there's one area in the book of a client where we might have a different perception on what the actual price should be for that sort of exposure. There are other areas where we are aligned in our views with the client. And what's important is that we look at the overall relationships we have, and that's how we also manage our price and discussions and manage to further increase our share of wallet with our clients in Central Eastern Europe.
From a facultative perspective, for me, Baden-Baden is a great opportunity to demonstrate our added value from the facultative reinsurance. Since facultative reinsurance is only offered from a limited number of reinsurers, it's a key differentiator for Swiss Re to demonstrate our strengths and the full range of products we would like to bring to our clients.
Thank you very much, and we wish you a successful Baden-Baden meetings in the next days.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.